Good evening. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Board of Education, the Goshen Central School District, which is being held Monday, March 17th, 2025 at the District Administration Building, being live streamed through YouTube. We can have a moment for pledge allegiance. For anyone following, we're going to go a little out of order today, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Coates for a question presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Wheaton. So it is always nice to come together when we can celebrate. And it's my pleasure to announce that each year the State School Administrators Association of New York and the National Association of Elementary School Principals takes applications for nominations of Principal of the Year. And among some of the criteria that they look for is continuing membership in NAASP for a year prior and to a year after the award. A practicing principal with at least 5 years of experience plans to continue, but most importantly, must demonstrate evidence of outstanding contributions to the community and to the education profession. I think those that are here to celebrate tonight would certainly stand behind and attest to the fact that this year's winner certainly embodies those attributes. And as a school district, we couldn't be more proud to announce that this year's State Elementary School Principal of the Year for the SANES and NAASP Award is Dr. Matthew Wentworth. Congratulations. Congratulations. Want to share any words? Yeah.
Good evening. Oh, I have to press that. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd just like to begin by thanking the people that really helped me get there first and foremost, which is my family. So I have my wife, Jen, here with me tonight. My daughters wanted to join, but we decided we weren't going to travel all the way home, get them and come back. But they've definitely done a lot to support me. Their love and support have kept me grounded every day. And I know that my mother is supposedly watching live, and I'm just gonna do a special shout out to her because it is her birthday today as well. But I especially want to thank you, the Board of Education, for the recognition and bringing us together tonight. I'm honored and as always very humbled. I don't really like attention very often. So while I'm the one standing here tonight, this recognition definitely truly belongs to the outstanding faculty and staff that we have at Goshen Intermediate School. It's their hard work, dedication, and genuine care for the students that makes GIS such a special place. This award is a shared award for them as well. I'm grateful to serve alongside each and every one of you every day. I want to also recognize some of my leadership partners that have made me into the leader I am today, besides people from my past lives in other districts. I also want to thank Heather Carmen, principal at CGH, the other principals across the district, and my current assistant principal, Mrs. Cruz. Your collaboration, friendship, and constant support have helped us become better leaders for all of our students. And finally, I just want to thank the Goshen community, especially our students. You inspire us daily and remind us why our work matters. This award is not an ending point at all. It's just a moment to reflect, celebrate, and move forward together. I do look forward to many more years of serving the Goshen community and continuing to build on the great work that we're doing together right now. So thank you again for the time.
On behalf of the board, congratulations and thank you for everything that you've done. Happy birthday to your mother.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll take a very short break just so we can celebrate with you real quick, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our meeting. Moving on to the president's report. Today I'm just filling in real quick. Honestly, didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare, but what I will say is I did have an opportunity to go and see the Beetlejuice play at the first school. It was really fantastic. I just gotta say, the kids, the administrators, everyone, I saw everybody there, the teachers and everyone that made that happen. The kids did a fantastic job. I really, really enjoyed it. And we don't have a student representative. Do we have any board committee reports? Legislative rocks? All right, so did everyone get a chance to read through the first and second readings that we have?
Yes.
Yes, everyone's saying yes.
Mhm.
Then move on to Dr. Curtis Coates for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Whedon. So before I begin my report, I would like to welcome another special guest this evening, Mr. David Rhoda, who will be appointed as the new head custodian at Goshen Intermediate School. Mr. Rhoda, welcome. We're glad that you could be with us tonight. Best luck in your new position.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order in the report that I have here. I wanted to start with some updates on some of the work that we have done in terms of preparing for what may be pending legislation coming from the governor on new cell phone restrictions, and in fact what they are calling internet-enabled devices in the proposed legislation that is coming from the governor's office as part of this year's budget process. We had an opportunity this week to convene our first stakeholder committee that included faculty, staff, administrators, and students and parents. We led off the meeting with a new letter that the governor has of support for this legislation from Common Sense Media. Common Sense Media is one of the largest organizations in the country that really puts out support for students and parents and teachers on responsible use when it comes to social media and electronic devices. And they in fact penned a letter to the New York State Legislature supporting the governor's initiative. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Carter just for a second, as Mr. Carter led the conversation this past week, just to debrief on some of the topics that were discussed and some of the work that was done in the first meeting. So Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. Good evening, everyone. So last Wednesday, I had a great opportunity to spend some time, almost 2 hours, with a little over 35 participants. That includes, as Dr. Coates had mentioned, faculty, staff, most importantly, students. We also had some parents there. So as mentioned, we did have a chance to go through the proposal and gather a lot of feedback, just thoughts and ideas about those items that might be concerning and those items that everyone felt rather good about. You know, coming from the mouths of our students, I think that was the most important piece, and we did document that to be shared at a later time when we finish our second and third. We also then moved on to talk about that common sense letter and the importance of it, in that, you know, it's really our governor garnering a great deal of positive support in her quest for that bell-to-bell uninterrupted instructional day. And so there was a lot of great ideas about that. I think our children, more importantly, understood where that was coming from. And then we moved into breaking down to 3 tables. We had planned on 6 different prompts. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to get through all 6, but we did focus on 3. So if I may, I'd like to just share quickly what the questions were. But before I do that, I just want to mention that we focused on allowing our student representatives the opportunity to speak first and to have our notes generated, and then the adult dialogue took place thereafter. And again, you know, over the course of probably a little over 10 minutes on each prompt, I think we gathered a lot of great information that we'll be able to use in the future as we move toward, if necessary, the development of policy. And so the first question that we asked: how do you feel about technology use in school, such as Chromebooks or other digital tools? Do you think they are being used effectively, or is there room for improvement? So as you can imagine, we heard a lot about effective use of technology from the classroom perspective, and also more so from the leisure perspective. You know, it may have been during transition periods, it may have been during lunch and even study hall. The second question that we asked our participants: in what ways do you think a distraction-free environment without personal electronics would impact your school experience positively and negatively? How would it affect your learning, your social interactions, and your sense of safety? And some of the feedback that we got there, again, particularly from our students, I would say it was eye-opening. We heard a lot about, you know, at times I don't feel like I'm surrounded by my peers. and there was a little bit of seclusion. And so I think it's important to get that from a student perspective and to be able to respond accordingly. And then our final question, if phones and personal electronics must be put away during the school day, how would you prefer they be stored? And this is where we got into a little conversation about the yonder pouch and other means of storing those devices. And we heard a little bit about our students feeling very uncomfortable being separated from their devices, not having an opportunity maybe to speak with their parents freely whenever they so choose. But also the thought or the idea that, you know, it may come up lost or stolen or damaged, and who would take care of that for them? And so again, this is valuable feedback that we did document, and as we move forward now to the second meeting scheduled for this Wednesday, we'll move forward again toward that policy development phase. I know Dr. Coates will be there to lead the charge as well. I think it was a great night. I think it was very positive, and we certainly look forward to cooperating and collaborating with students and faculty and staff as we move forward. That's it for self.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. So as we do move forward into the next two meetings, we actually have exemplar policies, one of which we received from the White Plains City School District. They are probably about 2-3 months ahead of us in this work, and in speaking with their superintendent, their work too was really focused on student engagement and looking at students as part of the solution of what may be pending legislation, and we'll be able in the next meeting to start to dissect that. And then finally, the last part will be anyone interested in any advocacy to go to the governor on potentially what we would like this to be in terms of law coming down with the budget process that would be completed this year. It does appear more and more that the governor is pushing for bell-to-bell restrictions. They've moved away heavily from the word banned, and they're looking for distraction-free learning. There's some broad definitions in the proposed legislation on internet-enabled devices, smartphones, tablets, watches, or other devices capable of connecting to the internet. So I think there's some work to do there to define what's going to be included. But I think, as Mr. Carter said, for our purposes, the conversation that we've begun with stakeholders who are interested in this topic is very much off to a good start. Happy to address any questions on that, or Mr. Carter can address any questions before we move on to other topics. So I want to pick up for a second, just to add on to Mr. Whedon's comments. It was a wonderful weekend from everything that was shared for the Beetlejuice production, but the one additional piece I would like to put on, none of these events happen without the volunteerism that we have from so many community members. And I'd like to not only thank those that were part of the production as employees, but those community members that came out to volunteer to support such a fine production. We're going to see the same at the high school with that many people that come out to volunteer at the same time. It just helps to continue to make the school such a vibrant place and allow for our students to have such incredible opportunities. So thank you to all those that took part in the production. It is now budget time again, and Ms. Lammer and I are going to step up to the podium and provide the board with an update with everything that we know and where we stand at this point.
Good evening. Tonight, I want to go over where we are now at this point in time. The revenue with governor's aid, that number has not changed yet. And it does include the capital project that we proposed for $1.3 million and giving us a tax levy cap of 2.16%. Our rollover budget projections were $96.7 million. And we were facing a gap of $4.4 million. So when we were proposing the capital project, we just wanted to put this up there to explain what the different parts of it are. The TJ Hooker building, we do need to upgrade the controls, they're aging, and this is a health and safety concern. The proposed amount right now is $658,630. And then in the high school, we would like to address the speaker system that's tied in with the PA and the fire alarm. And we have a projected amount of $510,000 for that project. And these are both health and safety concerns. And if we're able to include resurfacing the tennis courts, we do need to do some work up there. There are cracks in the courts right now that need to be repaired again. That's also a health and safety hazard. And right now, the estimated soft costs, what these include are the architect fees, any testing or engineer fees. It is just an estimated number as well. That's $56,370 for a total of $1.350,000. And again, these are just estimates at this time, but it just gives us a number to work from because the tax levy cap was due on March 1st. So we wanted to get a number in there. That number can be changed once the board determines how to move forward with that.
Okay, so we are now getting to the point where we have to propose solutions on how we're going to balance this year's budget gap. And one of the propositions that we're bringing before the board tonight is really in the area of staffing. As we know, staffing and benefits makes up anywhere from 75 to 80% of any operational budget for a school district. And to be able to balance the budget, Ms. Lamron and I are bringing you a balanced budget proposal for tonight. It doesn't involve looking at some staffing for next year. If you were to accept the recommendations that we are making, we do have 3 different secondary instructional positions where we would have retirements or resignations, where we would propose attritioning those positions. Same thing with various level teacher aides between the elementary and the secondary level. On the reduction side, and this is where this would affect people currently in positions, we would be looking at a reduction of 0.8 of a full-time administrative position, 2 full-time elementary instructional positions, 1 full-time secondary teacher assistant, and then 7 teacher aides. You can see the totals up there for reductions on an attrition of approximately $964 million. Again, it is never optimal to look at staffing reductions. We have combed through just about every single part of this budget, looking for different ways to try to balance the budget. Unfortunately, this is one of the resolutions that we have to bring to you tonight. As far as other reductions for proposals that we have made, I'm not going to read through every single one. You can see we have combed through the budget and found just over $2 million in other operational reductions. Some of these are related to software and support. Some of these are related to special education, making sure that we're educating children in the least restrictive environment. Some of it is in relation to benefit savings. Some of it is equipment savings. But we have literally gone through every line item of the budget, looking for ways to save for next year, coming up with the approximate $2 million savings that we have listed on this sheet above. It will also require us to increase our fund balance allocation for next year to be able to balance the budget. We'll be going up significantly for next year, but we'll have to be mindful of that in the out years as well, so that we can balance the budget in subsequent years also. I think it's important, again, for us to keep in mind where our enrollment is headed. We are starting to see a decline in enrollment in the district, where we are graduating classes anywhere between 235 and 250. And now for the past several years, we are seeing classes anywhere from 160 to 175. And as that decline continues, we need to consider, how do we right-size the district moving forward? And how do we make sure that we maintain a sustainable projection for the excellence in education that we do want to see here in the district. So some of the other options that we wanted to bring before the board, and again, these are multiple considerations on how we might be able to balance the budget. Obviously, without doing anything else to maintain that 2.16% tax cap, you would not need to take any of these options into consideration. However, if you wanted to consider preserving some of what we have in terms of personnel reductions, some of these options are available to you. Again, one of the other things that we could consider that we've discussed last time is an override of the tax cap. If we were not to eliminate any of the positions, you can see where we would have to head there. We could go anywhere in between. These are very rough estimates. I'm gonna ask Ms. Lamran to talk about what these estimates translate into in terms of the home value in the district. But again, that is an option to consider on the revenue side of the budget. The other thing before I turn the microphone back, one of the things that we did here this week is the legislature has released its one house budget proposal. The governor has given a guaranteed 2% of foundation aid, which is currently included in the revenue projections in our budget. The legislature holistically between the Senate and the Assembly has proposed 3%. That would give us another 1% in foundation aid. That's not reflected in this budget, anything that you're seeing tonight. So that is something that if that is reconciled between the executive and the legislative branch, could change our revenue projections, and that's approximately, we figured about $200,000. So that would be about another $200,000 on the revenue side in the budget. So I'm gonna just turn it back to Mrs. Lamran now to talk about what a potential override of the tax cap would look like, what the implications of some of that would be, and what some of those proposed monetary values would be.
Thank you. Thank you. So if we were to only have the attrition number in the budget and we did not have staff reductions, that would equate to a tax levy of 3.31% over the 24-25 school year's levy. And it's 1.15% over the cap, which is 2.16%. I did an estimated tax calculation. It's really a rough estimate because I do not know what the equalization rates or the assessed values are going to be yet. They don't come out until August, and that's when you set the tax levy. So I could only use what we know now. And using those numbers, the estimated taxes on a $300,000 home would increase $384.31 at the 3.31% increase, and that's with no staff reductions. If we should go with the cap, that's the 2.16%. The estimated tax increase on a $300,000 home would be $250.88, and that's a delta of $133.43. And I just want to again emphasize that these are based on assessed values and equalization rates from 24-25. So I really have tonight. Do you have any questions regarding?
Has there been any research into how we stand with teachers, teachers' aides, other employees and other districts or other like districts as far as population? So how many students per class, how many teachers' aide per student population, where we fall with other districts in the county or in our area?
Yeah. So as far as teacher aides go, we do have more per pupil teacher aides in our district. We are on the high side in terms of teacher aides. Our class sizes, I'd have to do a little bit more research. BOCES does a lot of this data mining for us. The last time I looked, and I'm only going on memory, and I'll do the research again, I think we were right in the middle of the pack. I don't think we were high, I don't think we were low, I think we were right in the middle of the pack, but I can confirm that data moving forward.
That'd be great. Sorry. That'd be great if you could provide that to us. I appreciate it.
And looking at that data, would that be something, that would be discussed and taking into consideration making cuts? Because I don't think those things could be considered without looking at all the data.
Yeah, so we looked at the implication of where those class sizes are within the district, and with the declining enrollment, we did year over year within the district, and the delta is not that large. You will see a 1 or 2 per pupil change within the classrooms of where it would affect, but it's not going to be significant given the decrease in enrollment that we're seeing.
10 years worth of data in district.
Right.
With those numbers that you were just discussing, do you feel that we are staffed appropriately, over or understaffed
With or without the reduction?
before any reductions?
I don't think that we're overstaffed. I think that are facing a district that's beginning to change. Like I said, the enrollment numbers are something that we watch very closely and regularly, and that declining enrollment is something that I think we need to be cognizant of and conscious of moving forward. And I think we need to combine that, and I don't want to step over toes with Ms. Lammer, with the fiscal future of the district as well. We need to get some balance back now that we have had our full foundation aid restored, and be able to get some surety and consistency with the tax cap. If we don't make some reductions in our spending, it's gonna be difficult to get that balance moving forward while we're trying to right size the district at the same time.
And also with the additional perhaps 1% that we will get, is there a timeline when that will be voted on?
So the budget is always due April 1st. But that's been as late as June some years, and it's been on time sometimes. I know they're working very hard to try to get it adopted, but legally the budget is due April 1st, but there's no end, let's put it this way, we have no end in sight that we're hearing from all at this point.
I didn't skip ahead yet, so it may be in another slide, but I know in previous presentations, you've talked about the fact that if we keep it low, what happened that 2 or 3 years down the road, we could have even further troubles trying to fill this. If it's not here, can you talk to us at all about what that is, or at least give us some information? If we do keep it low, from what I understand, and you'll probably say it better, but if we do raise it a little bit, it actually helps us 2 years from now.
Right, because you have a higher starting point if you have an increase in your tax levy according to your levy cap calculation. So then you're already at a higher starting point than you would be if you would stay at 0 or 1%. And then we do have, not next year, but the following year, we do have a drop again, we'll be below 1%. Again, I'm using information that I have now, and that's projected capital projects, projected debt service, our net debt service, and our BOCES project also impacts our tax levy cap calculation. But if other things fall into place, it could change. We also were able to use carryover funds because we didn't levy up to the cap last year. So that has been part of the calculation as well. That's $225,000. So depending on what we would levy next year, the following year, when we have the less than 1% increase, I think it's 0.45, we could use carryover funds then possibly, depending on what we levy for 26, 27.
And just to clarify for me, I'm not a financial person, so I just wanna make sure I'm getting it right. When you say 0.45, that would be the tax cap, the max that we could raise without piercing the cap.
Yeah.
That would be the limit set based upon our spending
Yeah.
now.
And you know, spending will just continue to grow, whereas the levy isn't keeping up with that. to
So
speak.
if we were, and I'm not advocating for that, I'm just trying to understand it all, if we were to go and do 3.31, would that raise that 0.45? Or
Yes, it would.
what's it, just under
0.45, correct, less than 0.5%, it would still be less than 1%, but it would be 0.80.
So almost a well, would double.
And we don't know what we'll expect for state aid at that point, seems to be leveling off. We also have our expenditure driven aids, so you do have to spend money in order to get your expense driven aid back, so it can grow to be difficult, because if you have to cut your spending in those areas when there's nothing else left to cut, we have to cut our spending at BOCES, for example, or if our transportation costs have to be cut somehow, those rated items also, then your aid can also decrease. So it's catch-22 at some point. Capital work. As far as the.
How it becomes an exclusion.
Oh, sure, the exclusion for capital work is important because that makes up what the net debt service is. Net debt service is our debt service for capital work, that's in the budget on the expenditure side. And then we get building aid for these projects, and the building aid doesn't always kick in right away. In fact, since they changed the legislation on that, it definitely doesn't kick in the following year. It is after the project is completed. So when your aid kicks in, then that's supposed to offset the net debt service. But until that point, you can levy your tax levy cap. It's part of the calculation. So if you borrow $1 million and you get aid of 80,000, the difference is what you can levy in your tax levy cap calculation. And it's important to also keep maintaining these, even if it's small projects, because you're getting work done, you're getting aid back. And it also keeps your tax levy at a somewhat of a steady number rather than having spikes and the dips that you see when you have a major project.
Have we, and obviously we wouldn't know until next year anyway, but was there any forecasting done to see what could be absorbed next year for attrition? So more or less I'm trying to get at, we have 639,000, for no staff reductions. So I'm just curious to know what it would take to get beyond that, knowing that, hey, next year we might have a bubble of teachers who are eligible, they might not go, but eligible for retirement, where if we're looking at reductions now, over the next 2 to 3 years, we know that we could almost kind of like reset ourselves and figure out whether, and again, not advocating for it, but looking at other things where if we wanted to borrow against a reserve or something to that capacity.
So we speak to personnel. So one of the things that we did look closely at is our seniority lists in all 3 of our bargaining units. I think on our teachers, Mr. Harris is here, but obviously the largest chunk of spending comes in the teachers unit. Where we need to see that attrition right now, if we're gonna talk specifically at attrition, is really in the elementary. That's where we're starting to see the class sizes decline. We are going to see a handful coming up that are eligible. Obviously, until somebody declares a retirement, you don't have any certainty or guarantee in that. But in that next 2 to 3 year window, we are going to see some possibility of attrition coming up there. Again, just with the full disclaimer that we just don't know for sure unless they absolutely retire.
Yeah, and I wouldn't hold you to it, I was just curious.
Sure.
Can I just ask a question too? I know a few years back, there was some addition of staff to like grant funding positions. So the proposed reductions that you have here, any of them, those positions, or I don't know if any of them were absorbed into the budget?
Sorry, all those expired this year with the end of the grant funding. None of those are reflected here. They were already taken out.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? No. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Coates. Moving on to the Assistant Superintendent for Business Report, Mrs. Van Putnam.
Good evening, and thank you again. So I did look into the Medicaid billing again, and I attended a webinar from New York State Education Department regarding the Medicaid billing. I also spoke with State Aid Planning, who is handling our stacks this year, and they are talking about doing this Medicaid billing up there in Albany for us, or for any district actually that participates. So I thought, why not talk with them some more and see what they can help me figure out would be a number for us to bill. So they said that it will take them some time. They do have access to our student records because of the stack services that they do. And it would take about 2 weeks for them to get back to me with some numbers that are closer to what we're looking for, more practical. And also at that time, in between, I'll be able to talk with them and work out a cost benefit analysis, because there are costs involved with staffing, potential staffing. There's time involved where they have to keep records specific for Medicaid billing. So I just want to make sure I cover all the bases, since it has been so long since we have billed for them. So more to come.
Thank you.
The internal audit should be finalized with an audit committee projected to be on the April 7th board meeting, prior to the board meeting. So I'll let you know, or Maureen will get in touch with you and set up that meeting once I have the final risk assessment and transportation review. And for financial information, our expenditures in the month of February were $6.8 million. We received some lottery aid, $146,000, and BOCES aid, $497,000. And our interest earnings this month were $310,000, which is much higher than you're used to hearing from me. And that's because we invested $20 million into a CD for 90 days. And the percentage of interest that we received on that was 4.48%. And currently we're at 4.25. So we did make some good interest as much as we could at the time. And our expenditures through the end of the month of February were $50.8 million. And that's 55% of the total budget. And it's pretty much in line with where we were last year. That was 54.5%. And our revenue is $71.3 million we've earned through the end of February, or 78%. And again, that's also in line with where we were at this time last year. That's all I have for this evening. Any questions?
One question, so that seems like a good choice of putting money into a CD for investments. Are we turning that over or rolling it over or doing anything else in the
So
future financially like that?
not at this time because the rates are in line with where we are with the regular accounts. So we will always keep an eye on that though. So make as little as, or as much as we can. Yeah, it is 4%. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we went out of order. Mr. Carter, do you have anything to add from previous?
I have nothing further, thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, can I get a motion? We got Shannon and John. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the consent agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
We have no old business. Moving on to 11.1. Can I get a motion to approve policy updates, second readings, renumberings, renaming, readoptions, and retirements? I got Billy and Shannon. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the second readings, renumbering, renaming, and readoptions of the following policies as presented. 12.1, motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting. What did I miss?
Need a vote.
Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
I don't do this all the time. Any opposed?
I got your hair, Maureen.
No, that's it. Keep me in check. Now I can move to 12.1. Motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting. Got Scott and Ashley. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the minutes of the March 4th, 2025 regular meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion for 12.2. Accept the recommendation of the Committee of Special Education and Committee on Preschool Special Education. I have Shannon and Billy. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby arranges for the special education programs and services based upon the recommendations made for preschool and school-age students with disabilities by the Committee on Preschool Special Education, CPSE, and Committee on Special Education, CSE, during the period of January 16th, 2025 through and including March 11th, 2025. It directs the district to arrange for the provisions of such special education programs and services to such preschool and school-age students with disabilities as recommended during such time period by the CPSE and CSE. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to 12.3, if I can get a motion to approve the annual meeting notice. John and Scott. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District, Orange County, New York, hereby authorizes and directs the district clerk to give notice to the qualified voters of the Goshen of the Central School District, of the annual public hearing on the 25-26 budget and annual meeting, school district election and vote in accordance with section 2020-004 of the education law. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion for 12.4 to accept stage production and assembly equipment donation to the Goshen High School. We got John and Shannon. Be it resolved, the Board of Education does hereby accept with appreciation the donation of a Zaxcom 8-channel audio mixer and road case by Richard Murphy for use by the Goshen High School for stage productions and assemblies. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you to Mr. Murphy for that donation. Can I get a motion for 12.5, approving the overnight trip for the varsity girls lacrosse to Farmington, Connecticut? I got John and Scott. Be it resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the overnight trip for the varsity girls lacrosse team to compete against the Farmington High School in Farmington, Connecticut from March 28th to the 29th, 2025. Be it further resolved that the board reserves the right to cancel or reschedule any school-sponsored trip or activity in the event of any emergency condition outside of the control of the school district in its sole discretion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion for 12.6, approve the overnight trip for the Odyssey of the Mind to Syracuse. I got Shannon and Billy. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education approves the Odyssey of the Mind trip to the state finals in Syracuse, New York from April 4th through the 5th, 2025. Be it further resolved that the board reserves the right to cancel or reschedule any school-sponsored trip or activity in the event of any emergency or condition outside the control of the school district in its school sole discretion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good luck to the Odyssey of the Mind. Motion for 12.7, approve the agreement for special education services sub-allocation of IDEA 611 and 619 funds. I got John and Shannon. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education enters into an agreement with Liberty Resources to provide special education services for students and for the district to sub-allocate IDEA 611 and 619 funds to said providers on a per student basis for the grant year between July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A motion for 12.8, approve the participation in the Orange Ulster BOCES cooperative bidding. I have Billy and Shannon. Whereas it is the plan of a number of public school districts in Orange, Ulster, and Sullivan counties in New York to bid jointly general supplies, paper supplies, cafeteria supplies, custodial supplies, health supplies, milk, ice cream, bread, technology, supplies and equipment, and other services and supplies as may arise for the period beginning July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Whereas the Goshen Central School District is desirous of participating with other school districts in Orange, Ulster, and Sullivan counties and the joint bidding of commodities as authorized by General Municipal Law Section 119-0. And whereas the Goshen Central School District wishes to appoint a committee to assume the responsibility for drafting of specifications, advertising for bids, accepting and opening bids, tabulating bids, reporting the results to the boards of education and making recommendations thereon. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District hereby appoints Orange Ulster Cooperative Bid Committee to represent it in all matters related above, and that Lorraine Van Lamerand is hereby appointed as the school district's representative to Orange Ulster Orange Ulster Cooperative Bid Committee. Be it further resolved that the Goshen Central School District Board of Education authorize the above mentioned committee to represent it in all matters leading up to the entering into a contract for the purchase of the above mentioned commodities, and be it further resolved that the Goshen Central School District Board of Education agrees to assume its equitable share of the cost of the cooperative bidding, and be it further resolved that the Goshen Central School District Board of Education agrees, 1, to abide by the majority decisions of the participating districts on quality standard. 2, that unless all bids are rejected, it will award contracts according to the recommendations of the committee. 3, that after that award of contracts, it will conduct all negotiations directly with the successful bidder. Wow. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I need a sip of water. We don't have anybody else sign up. Is there any board issues? No. All right. With that in mind, if I can get a motion to enter into executive session. I have Scott and John. Be it resolved that the Board of Education will enter an executive session with the intent not to reconvene the business portion of the meeting for discussions related to the employment of persons. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you and have a good night.